people, CEOs and business owners that we're talking to. So
anybody?
If not, then we can go on to the next slide.
All right.
Okay, great. So, and so why is this a problem? Because uncertainty stagnates. It just stagnates our mindset. It stagnates. I know in January, we all had great plans, business plans and marketing plans for 2020. And those are all sitting on the shelf now. And so this uncertainty has really, the GPS, the destination you had plugged into your GPS in January for 2020 has taken a detour. And, so we're all trying to figure out, where do we go from here? So I've created a triangle here. At the very bottom is the oxygen mask, the oxygen and the face mask. Probably the first part of March, mid-March, we were all sucking for oxygen. We're putting on our face mask. The next level up is, after we get air and feel like we can breathe, then the next phase is going to be survival for your companies. And, and I could see that being, a couple month phase. And then, we will at some point all get back to recovery and things will start to feel normal again. It's because this is such an unusual situation. That's probably going to be longer than other typical economic downturns. And then, we will be getting back to growth, but there are growth opportunities even now, and I'll address some of that. And then, at the top of the triangle is, back to where you probably were in January, and that was developing your vision for the future and for this year. So when you look at this, you might think about at this triangle, where were you in January? And where do you see yourself today? And where do you expect to be by Memorial Day weekend? You could also, where do you plan to be, by the end of the summer or by Labor Day weekend? When fall is here and hopefully our economy is all totally back to normal by then. So those might be some questions that you think about yourself and in your company. If you go to the next slide.
And Brenda, one thing that we did have somebody pop in with the chat.
Yes.
And it may be something that you'll address later on, but she's asking, she said, I need some webinar tools or training to help employees with safety concerns going back to the building and working in large numbers of people in the building besides us. And so, that may be something as we're progressing through this that you address.
Okay, great. So, there are a lot of falsehoods out there right now. And, what we're hearing is, this kind of goes back to, do I do any branding right now? Do I talk to my customers? Do I reach out to them, or am I being insensitive? And, so some companies are thinking, oh, well, people really don't even want to hear from me right now because they're, busy in their own survival mode. But as business owners, connecting is very, very important. And this is also the time that people have time to hear your message. They have time to listen and read. So, before, when they may have been just deleting emails or, or not reading, Facebook posts or any of your other marketing, people do want to hear from you now, and they want to keep connected with the brands and the companies that they really like. So that is a falsehood that people do not want to hear from you. Yes, they do want to hear from you. People want to be connecting, and right now, more than ever, people want to be connecting, and they definitely want to hear from the brands and the companies that they love, and as well as employees too. A second falsehood is, the companies are not buying. Well, people are buying. They're buying in a very new way. I'm sure you've seen Amazon and other distributors are hiring people like crazy in order to keep up with the demand. But if you're not in, even if you're not into consumer customer, B2B companies are also buying, because I would have never expected, but a week ago we had a call from an energy company that's out of town, and and they're looking at a new strategy, and they're looking at mergers and acquisitions. So they're ready to start buying. So even if you're not in the consumer or the customer area, even if you're in B2B, uh, uh, people are buying and companies are buying. But they are buying in a new way. And then a third falsehood is that companies must cut expenses in order to save the company. And that is an area that we're going to talk about next to really show how this is truly a falsehood. Um, so the roads most traveled, and these are the typical, there's three typical types of reactions of companies at a time like this. Um, so you might think about, as I talk about these three different types of companies, you might think about your own company. So there's the number one is the extreme cutter. That is the company that puts on the brakes. They cut deep, they cut fast, and they're cutting deeper and faster than all their rivals. And they're cutting their core, they're cutting into their operations, and they're cutting into their core business. And the result of that is then you establish a whole new mentality of pessimism. Also, sometimes, in fact, this has happened to a company I know of. The CFO just said, cut across all units, cut across all divisions, everybody across the board cuts. Well, and there's not a lot of strategy put into that. And so one result of extreme cutters is they just come in and just say slash all divisions, and instead, and they even cut all their operations, their core, and they're not creating operational efficiencies. They're cutting those as well. And so what ends up being is they're just too defensive. So the extreme cutter takes a very, very extreme defensive response to the crisis. I think that's backwards. So, okay, they switched. Anyway, so in 2000 and 2008, Sony took the extreme cutting road. And what they did is they cut in the 2000 and the 2008 recessions, they cut thousands of jobs, they closed factories, they cut research and development, and although they increased profits, the downside was that their sales growth only grew by 11%. Their sales growth went down. So although they did a lot of cutting, they increased their profit, but their sales growth went down. And what that allowed, so they lost, if we can all remember, some of you might be too young to remember, but Sony was really the dominant brand, when it came to televisions. So they lost the momentum that they had before the 2000 and the 2008 recessions to Samsung. Because what Samsung did during that time is they started looking at new products, and that's when they started getting into like e-readers and also gaming consoles. So that's an example of how when you do extreme cutting, you could be allowing your competition to overtake you when the economy comes back. The second type of company is what I call the Pollyanna company. And this is the company that has its head in the sand. They're denying the gravity of the crisis. They're denying all the warning signs. They believe that if they just keep innovating and keep expanding, that profits will rise. But at the same time, their customers are pulling back, or their customers are wanting to get back to basics. But this Pollyanna company continues to add bells and whistles to their products. And the result is that if there's anyone that's not on board with just like pushing forward, act like nothing's going on, the naysayers or anyone who tries to raise their hand about any warning signals get marginalized in an environment like that. The realities of what's happening in the environment or in the economy gets overlooked, and the warning signals are just basically overlooked. So this is in this case, you don't want to be too aggressive. And my example there is HP was the dominant computer company for years prior to 2000, HP and IBM. And what HP did is they went on this huge acquisition during the 2000 recession. They made their biggest acquisition ever when they bought Compaq for $25 billion. Some of you may remember Compaq. At the same time, at the same time, HP was dramatically increasing their research and development and dramatically expanding. They were opening up plants in third world countries. But what happened after 3 years after the recession was over, their earnings were down, and that allowed Dell, who had run a really tight ship, and we all remember when Dell began emerging as a new computer company, and that was because they were more of a hybrid, which we'll talk about next. They were more responsible in their acquisitions and in their growth and in their investments, and that they were actually able to overtake HP during that recession. And then the third company is the hybrid. And this is the company that really has, you're in the driver's seat, you're doing a little offense and you're also doing a little defense. And so on defense, yes, you are still cutting some costs to improve your efficiencies. But you're not really cutting at your core, the cost that you need to keep your core company running and being efficient. On the offensive side, you still want to make modest investments in research and development, marketing, machinery, anything that helps create operational efficiencies for you. And the result of that, you will, during the recession and during this time, you will still have modest benefits, but what's going to happen is 2 or 3 years down the road, when you compare your company to your competitors, you're going to have substantially more growth than your competitors if you take the hybrid. So and this is really an elusive balance. It's you just have to really know your company, and I call it an elusive balance because it's not scientific. It's probably more art than it is science. And during this, the hybrid company also stays really, really close to its customers, and also stays really close to knowing what the customer's needs are, opposed to like the Pollyanna who ignores the customer who wants basic products, but they keep adding bells and whistles. And so my example there is, again, prior to the 2000, Office Depot was the dominant office retailer. And they cut employees, they cut stores, they cut facilities in a very, very deep way. And Staples instead they increased employees by 10%, and they ended up being 30% more profitable than Office Depot 3 years after that recession. So that's a little bit of the 3 types of companies that you see going on right now. So the extreme cutter, Pollyanna, and yeah, you can go ahead and go to that next slide. And so here's the ripple effect of those 3 types of companies. So Harvard, in Harvard Business Review, there's an article called Roaring Out of Recession. And if you email me, I will actually send you this article, and it goes more in detail about everything I spoke about in the previous slide. But what is significant about this article is that they studied the last three recessions, 1980, 1990, and the 2000s. They interviewed and watched 4,700 companies. They traced their financials 3 years before the recession, during the recession, and 3 years after the recession. So really, say a 6 to 8 years time span. And through their research, this is what they found. So the extreme cutters, they only had a 21% probability of really pulling out ahead of the competition. This would be like 3 years after the recession. The Pollyanna companies had a 26% chance, but the hybrid companies, the ones who really took a responsible offense and a responsible defense, and really focused on operational efficiencies, had a 66% highest probability, which was the highest probability of being more successful than all of their rivals. And in one other book, actually a book that I want to mention, I don't have it on the slide because it's not available. I tried to find it, but it's been considered a master work on this topic. But a guy from Harvard, a student, he had written a book after the Great Depression called Marketing in the American Economy. And he interviewed 250 companies who survived during the Great Depression. And again, he did and so this book was written back in the, would have been like back in the 30s and the 40s. And what's interesting is that he found the same results. He tracked 250 companies 3 years before the Great Depression and 3 years after the Great Depression. And basically, he found the very, very same results. So, it seems like a paradox in recessionary times to be doing marketing and up in when you're looking at cost of budget cutting, but there is a way to do it very, very responsibly. And I think, looking at this ripple effect of doing it very responsibly shows that your company will come out much, much stronger in the, after this COVID virus and our economy is back to work. So we want to talk about a little bit about seeing around the curve. There's three solutions that we're going to discuss. One is about staying in your lane. Second is about how you can do social distance marketing without offending people. And third is new media. The media and marketing is definitely going to change after this COVID virus. So first, let's talk about staying in your lane. And on the next slide, there we go. So this is an example of what we did with, so basically staying in your lane is about really focusing on your employees, because your employees is your company. And if you did not have your employees, you would not have a company. So we're recommending that you give a lot of focus to your employees right now, and also meet them where they're at right now. So one of our clients, Delisi, they were doing a one-time 100-page, beautiful, slick magazine, and they were mailing to employees. Again, just that was really the only point they had to their. And when we began working with them, we recommended a better way to connect
That would be fantastic. Thank you, Taylor.
No problem. I worked for Brenda for 9 years, so know a lot of this. So as you guys can see, yes. So Delisi was running a campaign where they did one slick magazine a year, and it was the one time they actually were highlighting their employees. They were really focusing on telling different stories, but it only came out once a year, and it was very large. So not only a very costly piece, but also it only came out once a year, and with it being 100 pages, it was very hard to see that engagement. And so when we were learning about Delisi, when we started taking them on, we found out the families want to know information, the wives, they want to be connected. And so we really were able to suggest that it was changed to more of a regular communication. So they still do traditional payroll stubs that go out. I bet many of you guys do the same. And so we include a newsletter in there that is done each month, and it always has a message from the president, highlights some of the training, some of the successes, major project development. And it really allows the families to really be connected with Delisi. Delisi really has a strong family aspect to it. One thing you always see on their social media is, oh, my dad's so proud of his truck, or my dad worked there and now I work there. And so we knew we needed to keep that going. And so what Brenda really wanted to suggest here is staying in your own lane, meaning you need to make sure you're boosting your employee morale in a way that already makes sense for you. Do you already have a way to connect with the employees on a regular basis? And so if that's only social media, then that's social media. If you have an intranet, use an intranet, but do it in a way that you're showing regular communication. And I know Amy brought up the idea of webinar, Zoom, exactly what we're doing right now. You can turn it on without actually being talking to anybody, push record, and you can record a message. That is something that Mr. Delisi or the Delisi team does. And what they do is they use that video message as a way to connect with the employees. You do that through Zoom if you wanted to. No special equipment, just be in your office or be in your home, and you really will be able to get that same message across. And so I think if we could jump to the next slide, that will work. All right, let me see if Brenda's coming back. I see her.
Yeah, I see her. It looks like she's muted. So if she wants to unmute, then we can.
Yeah, I am unmuted now.
All right, Brenda, I think we got through the Delisi conveyor.
Our cable over here or something. Sorry about that, everybody.
No worries at all. Taylor filled in.
Okay, good. I'm trying to get it off my phone. I'll just take it to another room. I took my phone to the other room, couldn't figure out how to get off, so we don't have any echo. Social distance marketing, lots of opportunities there. So, you know, a lot of companies probably already are using a lot of these tools, but you haven't really thought about them as social distance marketing in order to keep in contact with your employees, with customers and your vendors. And so I'm sure everyone on all the companies on the webinar, you know, you have a website, and you know, great opportunity to be posting something on your homepage, on your website, what your company is doing in this time. You know, maybe if there's a new product or you're doing something to help the community, maybe, and feature employees who may be, you know, making a face mask to help the community. So you have a website, you've got a platform to really be telling your story. LinkedIn is another great platform, and that's really more for, you know, B2B and business, not so much consumer and customer, but, you know, because people do have more time to read and listen, LinkedIn is a great place to also post, first of all, make sure everything's really updated about your company on LinkedIn, but also it's an opportunity to post any articles or blogs that you've written, and it's a way, and you'll see blogs listed there as well, but it's a way to multi-purpose your blogs. Podcasts. I'm hearing from a lot of people. People are listening to a lot of podcasts. So, I would encourage you to utilize that. And then e-newsletters. And we were talking about paper newsletters, but also e-newsletters. And that's a great way of keeping in touch with your customers and your employees and letting them know what you're doing. And also in your marketing, you need to make sure that all of your messaging is definitely the tone is correct, it's sensitive, it's also appropriate, and also, be sure that it shows that you're listening to your sphere of influence, your customers. Make sure you're listening to them. Do not let your social media go silent, because if you do, there's this algorithm god, like with Facebook and Google, and if you go silent, it will damage your algorithms. And what you really you want to make sure that when people are searching your company or your product or your services, that your company shows up in the first page at all, if at all, no more than the second page, but certainly that first page. And that is all controlled by the algorithms, by the Google gods. So make sure that you are still posting, 2 or 3 times a week. And there's lots of things that you can be posting, just what I'd said about website, what your employees doing. And they can be fun things too. What are they doing in their spare time, or how are they doing working from home? So be sure to keep be sure you're utilizing all of these digital platforms, and which is a great way to continue doing marketing for your company while we're all social distancing. And then the next one is new media. And the truth of the matter is, we kind of have a perfect storm happening right now. We've been hearing for years that traditional media is either going to die or it's going to adapt. And, with the next generation coming up being, digitally focused, and I mean, that is how they are accustomed to communicating. What we're going to see, I believe, after this COVID, after it's in the new normal, is you're going to see a lot more influencers and bloggers and micro influencers. And those are going to be really key people to reach your target audience with your product and services. We put an example there, OKC Foodcast, that we would call that a micro influencer. I call it micro because it's very geographic specific. It's also very genre specific because it's food or industry specific. And so now's a good time to start building your ambassador list, and think of all those people who, who maybe have checked into your social media sites, who have friended you or shared any of your social media posts, and that they will be people you want to help spread the news about when you reopen, and things start to get back to normal. And I think you're probably seeing, for any of you who are taking the Oklahoman, every Sunday and Monday, they're posting an article about, employees who are being furloughed this week. And they're doing this for 3 months, which is quite a while. So I think that article is just a sign of the times, that, News OK is part of the Oklahoman, and you're going to see more and more, media being pushed to the digital platform. So, so you need to be thinking digital when it comes to what the new media is going to look like in the new normal. So just to wrap up about how to connect with clients without offending them. So mapping your trip back to work. The very first thing is really keep your employees first in mind, and also you might be thinking about a 30 and 60 day rollout plan for your employees. And also remember, like I said earlier, employees are going to be at very different stages. You're going to have some who are excited to come back to work and they think everyone should be there. And then you're going to have some who have a little anxiety, or just some people who aren't comfortable of being around a whole lot of people, for 8-10 hours a day. So you're going to have different groups of people. So you really need to map that out, give it some thought, and also just map out how you're going to roll out communications to your clients and customers and vendors that you're back and open. Number 2 is be a hybrid company. And again, just be very, very deliberate on and in what you cut and what you invest in. And the third is, on the hybrid, because remember, make sure you're thinking about where you want to be, like, in 3 months or 6 months. Think about where you want to be then and what do you need to be doing now to get there in light of the economy and the some of the barriers we have, with social distancing. And then third is, be prepared for the new marketing strategies in the new normal world. And you're just going to have to start thinking digital, because I believe that this COVID we were already going in that direction, but I really believe that digital has been put on a fast track now. And so we're going to have to rethink about, traditional media and how you utilize those in marketing your company. And then last is, book your next trip. We'll send this to South Oklahoma City Chamber. You can distribute it to everyone, or you can email me. My email is right there. And you can just click on that link and schedule a free 30-minute session with us to talk specifically about your company, and we can help customize a roadmap for you. And so I would be happy to take any questions, and I'm glad I'm back on.
Thank you so much, Brenda. This was fantastic information. We're so thankful that you've been a long-term member of the South Oklahoma City Chamber, and just what you give to the community. And so with that, if anybody has questions, please drop those in the chat. Looks like we've got something here. Let's see. Wasn't something.
While you're getting those, let me go back and answer that one question, and I hope I am answering it, because I don't have the full context of the environment that she was working in. But she'd asked about some tools for safety concerns working in a building. So I'm going to assume that this is a company that has a lot of manual labor in the company. So my first thought is I would make sure that you have everyone's cell phones, and if they can have a cell phone. I guess 2 things. One is, and maybe you already do like a safety briefing every day with all employees or before every shift, literally, 10 to 15 minutes. But in terms of tools, I'd make sure that you have everyone's cell phone numbers so that you can text, quick safety tips to them on a daily basis, if that is helpful. Zoom is also a great tool, and it's very easy. People can use it on their phone. They can use it at their computer, and that I would recommend Zoom to communicate with all your employees on safety tips. So, but again, if that didn't really answer that question, feel free to email me, and we can set up a 30-minute session. We can go more over that so that it's specific.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions for Brenda? Anything that sparked curiosity throughout this presentation, or anything that you would like her to address specifically?
Yeah, that I may not have addressed it and that you're expecting to hear. Happy to discuss that.
I'm not seeing anything coming through.
Well, I see one. somebody had asked about the artistic community and people being afraid to, I didn't see the whole question.
That may have been a private message.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry about
that. Oh, no.
Okay.
Here we go. For arts and entertainment businesses, how do we alleviate patron concerns regarding returning to spaces with large groups of people?
Right. I think number one is going to be about timing. I mean, if it's next week, yeah, big alarms. If they're talking about something in the summertime, I think that it would be wise, even as late as, June, as early as June, and maybe even as late as July, to encourage social distancing at any of these type of events. I'm sure that, with the president announcing these three steps, and then I know Mayor Holt will be unveiling, I mean, I don't know he will, but I would expect him to be unveiling some tips. But I think between now and at least June, you really need to be thinking about that 6-foot distance, couple chairs at least between everybody. But I think come July that hopefully we can relax some of that social distancing. Probably, would encourage, not a lot of handshaking and not a lot of hugging and that real personal that we're used to, because as Oklahomans, we love to hug and we love to have contact and be close to each other. But I think at least, through most of the summer, we're going to have to pause on that. But we'll definitely be looking for guidance from the mayor. And I would expect that he'll be rolling more details out and guidance on events.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like, hopefully that's not a decision that we have to make as individual businesses, that we will get some guidance from local, standards there.
Yeah.
So, Taylor, thank you for your advice. Be sure to also add your local community influencers to your ambassador list, Mayor Holt, your city council, school principals, etc., as they do have large followings. And if they are in tune with your business, they can often give shout outs and whatnot too. So anything else before we wrap up? All right. Well,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brenda. We really appreciate your time, and thank you for working with us on this. And if you guys have any follow-up questions.
For the interruption there.
Oh no, that's what.
Somebody from come and cut the cable.
No, it is not a big deal at all. It's nice to have staff members who can just fall in line with which your message is. So thanks again to our sponsors, presenting sponsor Moore Norman Technology Center, gold sponsor Metro Technology Centers, and silver sponsor Ide Bailey. And then of course, thank you so much, Brenda, with Jones PR. We really appreciate your time today. So
I'll email this to you so you can send it to everybody who attended, and so that they have my email address, or if they just want to schedule a free 30-minute consultation. So
fantastic.
And if anyone wants that article, Return Through the Recession, Roaring Through the Recession, it's really, really a fantastic. I'm happy to email that to anybody who's interested.
Wonderful. Well, we will be looking for that, and I will be following up with an email with all of these resources to you guys who have joined us, and then those who registered and weren't able to join us as well. So thank you so much. We will see you guys soon.
Bye.